What's up, everybody? My name's David Jagno, and I am going to be talking about Resident Evil 9 Requiem today. I got the chance to visit the Capcom offices in San Francisco and check out the game early. I just did this a couple of weeks ago, and I got to play a lengthy, about 2.5 hour long demo, including sections as both Leon and Grace. So I did get to see a big chunk of the game, get to play for myself and see what it's like. And so far, I got to say that it is extremely impressive what they've accomplished with what we've seen so far. Now, late last year, I did get a chance to play a brief, about 20-minute or so demo. You can find my video about that back a little ways on my page, but I did get to see a brief little preview of the game, but now I've got to spend a lot more time with it, including multiple different characters, a lot of different puzzles to solve, large environments to explore, like this large manor that I went around and did a bunch of puzzles in kind of typical Resident Evil fashion. So I did get to see a much longer section of the game and get to really see what it's going to be like on release with the full game whenever it does come out. So if you're unaware, Resident Evil 9 does take place the furthest along the timeline we've seen so far in the Resident Evil series. It does take place around 20, 30-ish years after the original event in Raccoon City. So this game does bring back Leon, who is now much older. It has Grace Ashcroft as your other playable character, who is the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft from Resident Evil Outbreak. So kind of interesting, bringing back a character that's known for more of a spin-off game. Leon, of course, did make his debut in Resident Evil 2, the game that originally came out on the PlayStation, but I have a Dreamcast copy of that game, which I think is very good. It's also available on the N64 and other platforms like that, and the remake that came out a couple of years ago is extremely, extremely good. Now, Leon was also very famously known for Resident Evil 4, which that game just recently got a remake too, which is very good. I've got the GameCube original copy of that game. I'm a big Resident Evil fan, as you can see. A few years ago for Father's Day, my wife actually gifted me the virus here, and you can see inside of this little vial. So this is a really cool prop that I like to keep on my desk or on my shelf. And it's a series that I've played a lot of. I've played almost all of them, and I'm a big fan of Resident Evil. So I've been a game journalist for over a decade now. I've been involved in gaming, communications for games, PR. I've worked on games themselves. So those are my kind of credentials as a fan and an industry professional. If you want to see my full preview of the build that I got to play, you can read that over at gamesbeat.com. But let's go ahead and dive into some gameplay. I wasn't allowed to record my own gameplay for this video. Instead, I had to use the B-roll footage that Capcom provided. So that's why if you watch a lot of these videos and previews of this game, you're probably going to see the same exact footage used in different ways because we weren't allowed to record our own footage. There were folks there from, PlayStation, IGN, GameSpot, all those different places, and everyone's probably going to have the same exact B-roll footage that was provided. So in my demo, you start out as Leon, and you get to play through a segment in kind of a hospital sort of care facility, clinic area with the doctor there that is, not as kind and gentle as he may initially think. And one thing that I really appreciated was that Leon, he looks and feels and plays so much differently than Grace because of who he is. There's so many more action-heavy tactical elements to his gameplay with a huge inventory to store a bunch of different weapons and items and gear. He can, be very aggressive in his melee attacks. He has an axe that he can sharpen and reuse on enemies. He can pick up and use their weapons like chainsaws when they drop them. He does his backflips. He does his crazy roundhouse kicks, and all that stuff is there. He drops his one-liners. Everything looks and feels just like you would expect Leon to, which I think is really exciting and refreshing because we haven't really played as Leon in the new game in so long. Resident Evil 6 was the last time Leon was a full playable character, and that game wasn't really loved very much by most of the fans. And so Resident Evil 2 Remake is, in the Resident Evil 4 Remake, it feels like he's a recent character, but he hasn't been in the chronology and timeline of the series for quite a while. So it's very nice to have him back again. It feels great to see a current modern version of the character. I think they did a really nice job nailing that feeling, and you can play as either Leon or Grace in fully third or first person, so you don't need to have either of them locked to either camera angle. You can just push pause real quick, go into settings and change it, which is great. I actually found myself gravitating towards third person for both of them. That's just kind of the way I prefer to play games usually if I'm given the choice. I did feel like first person makes it feel much tenser and more claustrophobic and more of a horror game, especially as Grace. But I liked being able to see my environment better, especially whenever we're trying to evade enemies and run away. Being in third person just makes that easier, and it was something I preferred. But if you do want to make it feel more claustrophobic and intense, even as Leon, I think playing in first person definitely aids in that endeavor. There's a little small detail. I'm recording this before I've looked at all the footage, so I don't know if there's going to be footage of this. But whenever you reload your gun, I noticed something really clever they do is if you have your flashlight out while holding your gun, the character will put the flashlight in their shoulder and then reload with their hands like this. And I thought that was a nice touch. Something else that they did is knowing that Grace is, young and inexperienced, she's more of a desk job FBI agent rather than Leon, who is, decades of fighting these monsters and stuff at this point. He, he's able to aim and reload and things much quicker and get to grips with what she's doing. You can hear her breath is shaky, her hands are shaky. It feels very different, which I think it's difficult to do that in a game like this, where usually playing as that character is a very personal and very intricate experience and feeling that they need to tap into. So being able to accomplish that with two separate characters, what feels effortlessly, is fantastic. I think they did a really good job of making them feel distinct. It's essentially, it feels like you're playing two separate games that are mushed together. So after the first section, I played as Leon. I played as a lengthy, like almost 2 hour long segment as Grace, going through this manner, solving puzzles, evading these big giant monsters. There's lots of cool things that you can do. Like you get this item that lets you suck up the infected blood from downed enemies, and then you can use that to create things like ammo. It's another crafting resource, and you can also inject yourself to increase, like your health, increase your weapon handling. There are lots of collectibles like these coins you can use in a dispensary to get items that are stored there, which I thought was kind of neat. And it's really nice. Well, one of the other interesting things, they changed the way that these creatures operate. In previous Resident Evil games, once someone's turned, they're basically just mindless, drones that walk around and try to eat you. But in this one, they retain some of their original self, and they're still found around the manor and around the homes and things, doing what they were doing before they turned. For example, there's a maid cleaning a window in a bathroom, and she'll continue doing that if she never sees you. She'll just stay there doing that. There's other, people might be sitting around a table eating. They might be, walking around the halls as a janitor. They might be, there's all these different things you can find them doing. So it's interesting to see them having more advanced scripting with their AI and things like that, like the butcher that is hacking up meat in the kitchen, for example. So I think that was interesting. I thought that was a nice touch. It makes a lot more dynamic enemies for the gameplay. And then the third section of my demo was going back to Leon, where it was much just pure action. I got a grenade launcher. I was, fighting tons of, large groups of enemies. It was very, very gory. The game is much bloodier than I think even other recent Resident Evil games are. It's just very gory and bloody, which to me is fine. I'm a fan of that kind of stuff. I do find it enjoyable. But yeah, after playing this, I'm even more excited than I was before. I was already going to plan to be there day one as a fan. Now I'm hoping I get to review it because I just really love what I saw. Resident Evil is one of my favorite game series out there, and so I'm excited that they're not just reinventing the series, but they're bringing back elements from past games and mixing it with new elements in a way that feels really fresh and interesting and original. And I think they've done a really nice job. It's exciting that both Silent Hill and Resident Evil are current and amazing again. I think that's something that we don't talk about enough. It's great to see these two icons back at it again. And Resident Evil 9, it looks really good. I'm excited for it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen, what you heard in this video, let me know down below. And let me know what your favorite Resident Evil is down in the comments below as well.
Felt out.